Hi everyone, Jessica here from Paper Ink Stamp and welcome back to my channel. So today's video we're finally getting around to some older magazines. This is Simply Cards and Papercraft issue 232 and this is the Textured Owl and Sentiment stamp set by Textures by Lou Collins. So we'll take a quick look in the magazine. We're not going to go and look at too much. Obviously this has been out for a little while now because it is slightly older, but of course you have got your inspiration in here on how you can use this die set in different ways. I do have a commission in here and it's this in-depth guide to no line colouring. I used some distress inks to colour in this flower here, so I had a lot of fun creating that card. But again, just looking through, trying to pick out some of the makes with this. So you add mixed media, we've got terrific textures, so using what I'd imagine is felt and different fabrics and things, again, just to use this in a different way. The die set itself, you have the background die. Then you have the die on top, which has got all of that detail on there. You will know, of course, what comes included in next month's issue. I do have that magazine as well, so I'll be creating a video using that. I think it was the feathers one, if I remember off the top of my head. So that'll be fun to use. But again, I will just show you. Oh no, sorry, it's this one, the Crafter's Companion. Was the night before Christmas. It must be the feathers one after that, because I'm pretty sure I've got 3 issues of Simply Cards and Papercraft. So let's get into using this die set. I'm bringing in some other products. This is the Apple Blossom. Gosh, I can't remember what this is called now. I'll leave a link to it in the description box down below. I'm going to use this for our background. It's like a grass, I think it is. So this is a 2-piece die set, DL size. You've got the actual background panel itself, and then you do have an outline die as well, which fits exactly onto a DL size card base. I'm not actually going to end up using that. I'm going to use a different die to cut out a layer to go underneath this panel. But first of all, we're going to do some ink blending. So I've just taken a scrap. This is Crafter's Companion multi-purpose card. I'm really actually loving this cardstock at the moment. It's 300 GSM. It is quite thick, but I used it for alcohol colouring the other day, which surprisingly worked quite well. Here you'll see me do some ink blending here with some Distress Oxide inks. It has got, it's called multi-purpose cardstock. Yes, it's on the thicker side, but it does seem to handle quite a bit from what I've tried anyway. So the colours I'm using for this colour combination, I wanted to go for something a bit different and a little bit bright. We've got Squeezed Lemonade, Salvaged Patina and Seedless Preserved. I'm using my blending brushes here to get a nice blend, just going back and forth. The blends never look very good on camera. I'm not really sure why. They definitely looked a lot better in real life, but the great thing with using a background die like we're going to be using, you don't have to get a perfect blend, because the idea is the colours just coming in through the background, and really all of that design of that background is going to basically cover up any kind of imperfections. I've just got the die here. This is the Pampas grass one. This is like I said though, I'll leave a link down below. So creating backgrounds like this and then using the dies, the full plate dies to go on top of it, is great because it's very, very forgiving when you are ink blending. If you're just starting out, it is a great way of kind of getting used to blending together, blending your combinations and things, and really, just being able to kind of practice at it. And yeah, it is very, very forgiving. I'm going to die cut this with the largest stitched DL nesting die. You don't see any of the stitched detail in the end because it does cover it, but I find it easier rather than having to pull out my 12x12 guillotine. I find it easier, to be honest, just to die cut with this die, and then it's the perfect size for my card base. So I've just die cut that, and again, absolutely perfect. And the blend, the best thing to get a good blend is to make sure you've got a lot of ink and just go back and forth and really work at it. That's sort of the best advice I can give you if you want to improve your ink blending. So now we're going to die cut this. I'll be honest, it took me a fair few goes, and even the final sort of die cut version didn't work very well, I'll be honest. I think it was a Nina cardstock, which is a lot thinner, because what I wanted to do was die cut 3 of them and stack them together to make it slightly raised. I thought that would create a really nice shadow. But because of the size of this and the fact that I use the Gemini Junior plates to die cut through my big Gemini, it doesn't really work because it doesn't give you the pressure. You can't kind of turn it at an angle to get the good pressure. So I ended up having to go back to the multi-purpose 300 GSM cardstock. I had to put it through twice, and whether you can really see it here on camera or not, it double die cut, but with slight movements. So the portion at the top, a lot of it ended up falling out because the lines can be quite thin anyway. But then because I die cut it and it moved, so it made those openings bigger. Yeah, it just didn't really work particularly well. I've left this in so you can really see it, certainly when I get, like I said, nearer the top of this. But what I have done now is I've ordered from Amazon 2 new cutting plates for the large size. So the normal plates for the Gemini large die cutting machine, because one of mine is super warped and it's really difficult to get it through the die cutting machine, which is the main reason why I only now use the junior plates. So I've ordered 2 new cutting plates, so you might see the large plates come out a little bit more. Certainly for dies like this, I'm going to try die cutting this piece again when I get those larger plates delivered and see if it makes a difference, and I think that really is. And if you see it there, the bit I'm working on, can you see how much bigger those openings are? It just kind of ruined it a little bit, but it took me so many times to die cut it and actually get pieces to come out that I didn't bother doing it again. I just left it, and we're going to be semi covering that area anyway with our owl, so I wasn't too fussed. But again, so you can see here, is super forgiving for your ink blending because it will just go over the top and it will kind of hide certain areas. You can die cut this with some double-sided adhesive just to make gluing it down a little better. I'm using some Nuvo glue, and I've got that in this Crafter's Companion fine tip glue bottle, which is perfect. Go right around the edges and then just on the thicker pieces of this background piece, and it comes together then sort of super easy. Because really on top of this, all you would need to do is add a sentiment. I think there's I want to say there's like 3 or 4 backgrounds in this kind of apple blossom collection. So, maybe if you want to have a look at the other ones, you might like those maybe a little more than this one. But I thought this would be great for masculine cards as well. And just, for adding a little bit interest onto the background. So when we glue this onto our background, you can see here, it just looks so different. Like I don't have anything like this in my stash, and I've been picking up products like this rather than buying specific stamp sets and die sets and things. I've been buying more generic items that I can use with lots of different cards, lots of different other products that I already have in my stash. It's great for doing the commissions as well because it's just extra products that I can use for techniques and things like that. But I have kind of changed the way that I'm in terms of purchasing. Just at the moment, like I said, I'm just sort of building up a little bit of a stash with the nesting dies, these background dies, because there's so many things that you can add on top of this to change it up. It's just a piece that's going to be in the background to add a little bit more interest. So I've added some glue onto the back of that. I decided not to put this up with foam tape. I'm just going to glue that straight on. But you can see those bigger pieces again there that, they shouldn't be that big. It's just that those pieces have fallen out. I always hate mirror card because I always end up reflecting in it and it's never at the best angle. But I'm going to be using some silver mirror card for the background and then some orange card then for the owl. I'll be honest, this isn't my favourite free gift. Things like this don't really interest me as much. Like, I'm not really going to use this for a lot of different projects, to be honest. It's not necessarily my style, which is okay. We all have different styles. It's nice to challenge myself. I do enjoy that, but I do struggle with having these magazines and things and maybe having more products that aren't necessarily my style than what they are. But like I said, it's nice to kind of try something new. So you do have some bits that die cut, obviously the shape of the owl, the eyes die cut, and you do have some partial die cut in the middle, which you're going to see me raise up a little bit with some of those feathers in the center. But all of that other detail that you've got that's on the die itself, you can use that as a stencil. So leave your cardstock in the die, and I just used some ink that was left over from the squeezed lemonade, from my yellow brush, and I just went through that and used it as a stencil. Just make sure you clean it off afterwards, and it works perfectly, and it just adds all of those lovely details. And also the feet as well, they do raise up, so just adding a little bit of interest, a little bit of dimension there. So I just raise those up nicely. Now I'm just adding some glue, and I can pop that onto this mat. And the next thing I did, because I thought it looked a little creepy, the fact that it didn't have any eyes, so I just took those eye pieces on a scrap piece of cardstock, and I'm just going to colour these in black. These are quite small, so I just used a fine liner, but certainly using like a black marker would have been a little bit quicker, to be honest. But yeah, you can sort of put those eyes back in, because I thought it just kind of looked like it didn't have any eyes, so definitely wanted to put those back in. So just a small blob of glue in that. It's a little bit of paper piece in here, and then I'm just using a jewel picker to pop those pieces in. And then that's going to be our owl finished. And again, by the time you put this on the card, you're not going to notice that background where we've got some of those areas missing. On the back of here, I'm going to add some foam just to give it a little bit of dimension and pick it up from that background. So the foam pads that I buy, these circle ones from Amazon, they come in a really big pack, loads and loads of sheets in here. So I use the circles, and then I don't want to waste the rest of it because it's perfectly good. It's all still the same dimension. So I just literally cut that up afterwards, and then I pop that onto the back as well. And really nobody is going to notice. I'm going to pop that on the top portion, and then the only thing left to do now is use the sentiments. So I do like the sentiments that come in. You got some of them are owl specific, some of them are sort of more generic birthdays, but I like the different styles that you have got in here. I decided to go with Another Year Wiser, just for something a little different, and instead of then putting this stamping it onto some coloured cardstock, I'm just going to kind of make my own here and have it blend in with that background. So I'm taking some of that Salvaged Patina again, just on a scrap piece of card. I'm going to pop this into my stamping platform just so I can make sure I get a good impression. And then I'm just going to stamp on here. So if you have used your inks, maybe you can't find a coloured cardstock that matches perfectly to your project, just use the inks, blend up a piece of scrap cardstock, and then use that as your coloured card. So just make your own. You could do a little bit of ink blending again on here. So we could do the squeezed lemonade with the Salvaged Patina, or whatever combination you want. And it does just kind of keep everything nicely together. And I stamped that with some VersaFine Onyx Black ink, but it looks a little wet still, so I'm just going to blast it with my heat tool. Also then that Salvaged Patina, because it's a nice juicy ink pad, that's going to have, that's just going to take a minute to dry, so we're just going to help that speed up a little bit. And then I'm just simply going to cut this out. Because of the cardstock I use, this is that Nina cardstock again, so it's quite thin. I wanted to make it a little bit thicker, so a little bit of a cheat here. If you had a die cut that coordinated and die cut a sentiment, you could just do this a couple times and stack them together, but because I'm cutting this out by hand, I literally just folded the piece of paper over, added some glue in the middle of it, and then pressed it and cut it, and then that's just going to make it a little bit stronger and just a little bit thicker then as well, and it stayed together perfectly well. I'm going to add some foam just to the one side of this, and then some glue to the left hand side, so we can then have it half on the owl and then half on that background. And I'm going to tuck it up under the feet, which I thought was a nice touch because it makes it look like it is just sat on top of this sentiment. And then the only other thing we're going to do, I'm pretty sure this was the Caribbean Ocean Nuvo drops that I'm going to use just to pop some drops around the card. And that's going to be our card finish. So again, sometimes it's a little bit harder to use a product that maybe isn't necessarily in your style, but I really like how this card came out. I want to get into ink blending more than I currently do. I want to definitely be using my inks a little bit more. So it was nice just to give this background and that background die a play with, as well as looking at the magazine and finally getting some magazines to do some videos on again. So that's going to be it for this video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you aren't currently a subscriber. It will really help my channel to grow, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my future uploads. So that's it for today. Thanks very much for watching, and happy crafting.